Okay, I might have to upload both of these. So I got cut off because I needed to clean out the phone. So um, the Jews brought God to the whole world. Okay, then they brought Jesus to the whole world. And so the Jews are God's, that's just God's throne right there. America, we're the Christian nation. And so you have the big Christian nation, and God's throne, Israel. And then we too, both of us, are freeing Iran, where God has put his throne also, and has visited them personally. So I don't know if there's some cool connection with that, but that's pretty wild because, look, Trump went over there and got Maduro. He's had his sights on what? Mexico, Canada, Iceland, some other places, right? Those countries, they're nothing special. Okay, well, yeah, for us, America, for him, like to protect America, right? That's good purpose, good business, good management. That's necessary. But those countries are nothing. Germany's nothing, Italy's nothing, France is nothing, Britain, England, all that. They're known for nothing. Iran has been known for being the biggest terror of the world. The biggest terror headquarters of the whole world. Now, Venezuela, those Spanish, are they like Spaniard countries like Venezuela, Mexico, maybe like Cuba? That's another one. Puerto Rico. Those are all voodoo, pagan, the drug cartels over there in Mexico and Venezuela, they're into Santeria. They literally do witchcraft. The drug lords do. I'll bet, what's his name in the White House? Of course his name escapes me right now. It's like a household name. And he's from Cuba, isn't he? Yeah, he's from Cuba. He knows all about that garbage. Okay, those are such evil, wicked countries, yeah. But they're nothing like Iran. But they're in bed with Iran because it's about drugs and Islam, terroristic things. And they're married together. They need each other. One is Amalek, Haman, whatever, and the other is witchcraft. I think Islam is Satan's throne because they're worshiping a god, and it's a false god. They're worshiping one god. Those Spanish countries are more like they're worshiping demons. Islam is worshiping Satan himself, because if it ain't God, it ain't godly. So I think there's some kind of connection with that. And then I guess there was I should have, okay, well, like say on my notes, Tucker's all bitchy about, having a hot flash and a PMS problem about all this, wars and stuff, okay? And basically what he's saying is heresy. First of all, I already explained why, about the war and everything, why it's needful and stuff, okay? Because it's all throughout the Bible. And yet if Tucker wants, this is all fake, it's not what he really is talking about. Okay, we all know this. We all know his agenda is something very dark, and I don't even want to try to think about what it might be, but it ain't holy, okay? So when he's talking to, what's his name? I can't remember his name either. Household name over there in Israel. And he has his own Huckabee. Okay. And he's saying, well, why don't we want to worry about America? Why are we out on all these other countries and helping them out and all this and Israel and blah, blah. What about us? That's like saying, like I've said a comment, it's like a God complex, you want peace in America, you want prosperity in America, you want the Band-Aid back like Obama did and everything, okay? And that's like saying to God, it's like saying, God, I don't care that you set this president up. I want what I want. I don't know how I worded it. It was in the recording, but I had it all strung out, like step by step, and now I can't remember. But, that I can't remember how I explained it. But if you're not going to have a war against evil, then evil will take over. And it's not just about putting a Band-Aid on it. It's about God put who he put in office. It's not like Trump is an irresponsible businessman that makes horrible decisions like all the other presidents did on purpose. And nobody had a problem with that. But all of a sudden, they have a problem with being responsible. And we don't like that. We like the irresponsible shit. Yeah, it's you guys, this is such a red flag. It is so bizarre. It is so bizarre how they're so irrational. They're just so irrational. They will not give any credit whatsoever at all to Trump. And, King Solomon, God blessed that king with peace. He told King Solomon, that whole kingdom is going to be in peace for I don't know how long. That was the only time. And it'll never happen again until Jesus comes back. But King David, everybody loved King David. There's nothing wrong with loving your king. There's nothing wrong with all those Iranians over there loving Trump. There's nothing wrong with all the Jews loving Trump for what he's doing for them. That is not worshiping your president. And that isn't, that's just, that is wrong if you don't, because it's like God has blessed you with a good king. It'd be like you saying about King David, oh, well, I'm not going to worship King David. I worship only God. And God blessed them with that king. God blessed us with this king. And you're going to be like, oh, so pious. I'm not going to worship the king. No, it's being grateful. Okay? And it's acknowledging the miracles in it and through it, through him and all that. And, is it King Hezekiah that showed the Babylonians everything? He was bragging. Some people say he brags. He doesn't. And then King Hezekiah, because he didn't give God credit, the Babylonians took over. And who is the prophet? The prophet said, you fool, why did you say that to Babylon? And then once King David was going to war, and before he went to war, unlike all the other kings, the other kings would what? They would ask all the prophets to come and lie and say, yeah, go to war. And then that one time they even did that, a different king, whatever. And they said, let's bring Micah in. And they go, oh, I hate that prophet. He never says anything good. So those kings, those bad kings, wanted their false prophets to lie to them, and they were always bad. But King David wasn't. King David always asked God, and the one thing that he disobeyed one time was God said, "Don't number your men. Don't number your men." And King David did it. Okay. Another thing about that, if you're gonna catch that, where, oh, King David worshiped God and Trump doesn't, that was in Israel. Those were the only godly, supposedly supposed to be godly. None of them, except for King David and the other one, King Jeroboam, or I don't know. There's like a couple, maybe 3, that were godly kings. Okay? All the other ones chose to be evil and wicked. Even King Solomon himself ended up kind of being wicked, right? That's Israel. Those are the Jews. Those kings, it was a must that they had to be a Christian, which it's not really that, but you know what I mean. So in other countries, though, that's not how it is. In other countries like us, as we are one, the president doesn't have to be a Christian. It is just who God has set up. And I made a comment in my comments, in my posts, that it's kind of explaining some of this. My last post with a video. And where else was I going to say? So if Tucker, it's like he's saying we shouldn't go to war ever, which, you know, there's going to be times where we won't, where we haven't, when there's been a Band-Aid put on stuff. You know, and then it's almost like he's disparaging God's choice when he knows the Bible, supposedly. He knows God puts kings up there, and he knows God sways their hearts. And he's like, I don't want to go with that king. That king's making bad decisions, which isn't true. Because if you're a Christian, you see the truth. You know, the Holy Spirit will guide you into all truth. Well, if the Holy Spirit is not able to guide you into a lie, who do you think is guiding Tucker? So I forgot what I had said about that, and the recording is on this phone, and I might have even deleted it, but because I thought, oh, I'll remember the point. But it's just kind of heresy when Tucker is so against, you know, and everybody's being irrational because everything is going great with Trump and the war, if you want to call it a war. You know, I don't see guns going around blowing up things around here. We're not at war. We're all it's business as usual. Oh, but the gas is high. Oh, shut up. I just want to freaking smack them. Well, anyway, they're over at war in the Middle East. Okay. Now, yes, I went over that. What is that abbreviation? Yeah, so Trump isn't bragging. He is intimidating. You know, the verses, don't trust in chariots and your armor and your this and your that and your army. And that's not what Trump meant. He's not, those verses mean you're so scared that gun on your hip, I've been there. I got robbed while I was in my apartment. I was in the shower, for crying out loud. As soon as I got out of the shower, buck-ass naked, with my robe on, went to my bedroom, dropped the robe, took like 2 seconds to put my clothes on, walk out, bam, the person's 3 feet away from me with his back toward me, dressed in black from head to toe. And I froze. And some pictures I had on the wall, kind of catty corner where he was standing, I think he either saw my reflection in one of them or he felt my presence behind him. But I was frozen forever. And then I'm thinking in my head, I know where my gun is, but if I turn, he's going to get me and jump me, and there's going to be a scuffle. I may never get my gun. He might get it, put it on me, and I was frozen in fear and thinking, because my gun was just right in the same place I left to get my clothes on, and in my nightstand right there on the edge. Okay. And then I saw him move, just not even this much. It was the first, he was standing so still, just looking straight ahead. He had his back to me, and I just walked out of my room and looked up to go up through the threshold into the living room. So he might have been frozen, like, oh shit, are they going to do something? Okay. And my kitchen was to the left. It was an apartment. I had a washer and dryer stacked in there. That night, I had some clothes on the kitchen floor ready to be washed. They were in piles, your colors and your whites and your darks. And they were in neat little piles on the floor okay. So I see him move ever so slightly. And that's when I'm like, I'm going to have to just die trying. So I turn around and I run for it. And I open the drawer, get the gun out. And I kid you not, I practiced that gun. I knew that gun like the back of my hand. I knew I would never own one unless I knew it like the back of my hand. And it was a 9mm Lady Smith & Wesson semi-automatic, okay? So, and I used hollow points. And as soon as I had my hand on that gun, my back was still to the door, and I had my hand on the gun. I forgot everything I knew about that gun. It was my hands were on autopilot, automatic. So I got the gun. As soon as I chambered a bullet, I turned around, because then I was safe, and anger welled up in me, and I felt empowered by that gun. And I yelled, I said, I'm going to kill you, because I didn't see him. He didn't obviously follow me. And I yelled that really loud. And then I started going back to the threshold and I had that porcelain top Marshall Field table in here. And from that threshold, I could see some of the kitchen table. He obviously was reaching for my purse, lost his balance, smacked his hand down to balance himself on my table, and ran out my back door so hard that on the door jamb, he left black marks from his black t-shirt, from his black belt, from his black jeans, okay? And by then, I had the gun aimed at him, but his back was to me. And he was halfway out the door. So that was in Kansas City, Kansas. Maybe it was Kansas City, Missouri. Anyway, everyone was getting broken into. Thank God he wasn't a rapist, but everybody was getting broken into because it was a real easy. I'm not going to explain it right now. But anyway, and I always wondered, why is my light bulb out there always unscrewed? I thought, is the maintenance man, does he get pissed at me for leaving it on all day? No, the guy was stalking, okay? He was probably in my apartment many times, but my purse wasn't there, and I had no valuables. So anyway, I didn't have the chain on that night. But anyway, by the time I got out, after I said that, he heard me, and he heard the bullet. He heard me chamber it first, and then he heard me say that. And by then, he was on the move. And so I was thinking in Texas, and I got the gun in Texas. So in Texas, where I practiced, you know, you don't aim, you don't shoot unless you know you're gonna kill. So if I had shot him in the shoulder, in the back, when he's halfway out of my door, I don't know. I didn't know the Kansas City laws, so I wasn't gonna try. Plus, there was a big old window, and I didn't want to accidentally hit the window. Well, so after that happened, and of course, I called the cops. I was terrified. I called my mom, who lived in Texas. I'm like, please come out. She came out and she stayed with me. I couldn't sleep. I had to put a chair up under my doorknob in the bedroom, and I still couldn't sleep. I had a bullet chambered and it was under my pillow, and I would be like this with my finger on the trigger, and I still couldn't sleep. I mean, when the cops came, I had the gun like this the whole time. And finally they said, because I'm showing them around and I'm saying this and this, he said, ma'am, you got to put that gun away. I said, no. Actually, before the cops showed up, I think the groundskeeper was coming around in the golf cart, and I got on his golf cart and I'm like, yeah, they were. And I was banging on the doors. Nobody would answer their door for me. And anyway, I trusted in my gun. Ever since that happened to me, I was so terrified that I was afraid to be without my gun. And I already took it with me everywhere as it was anyway, but I never was like on me. It was locked up in my console. But that laundry that I had in the kitchen, he probably sensed me and also heard me move to go to the bedroom. And he thought to himself, I don't know who that is. Maybe he saw my reflection, knew it was a woman. I don't know. Maybe he'd been in there before, figured it was a woman. But he went out the back door when he left. When he knew I was in the bedroom getting the gun and everything, not knowing what I was doing, because when I left my apartment, I had my gun with me. He never saw a gun in my apartment if he'd been in there before, but he obviously felt that I was there and leaving and going to the bedroom. And so instead of going out the back door, which after he heard that bullet chambered and me saying, I'm going to kill you, he knew where the back door was all of a sudden. But later I found out that he obviously went through my kitchen, which there is no door out that way, but there is a door, a front door that's on the other side of the kitchen that you would have to go through a wall to get through. So the two doors were visible, but the kitchen was over here. He went through my kitchen as I had turned around. He could have thought I was going to get on the phone. He was obviously going in there for a knife. I don't know. Because when I check it out later, my piles of clothes were all strewn out into the living room even. He was like going, looking, and he heard me, and he stumbled over all my laundry to go out of my kitchen to get out the back door. So anyway, that's what God means when you trust in your armor, to make a short story long as an example. But yeah, on the outside of the door, you have your deadbolt. And first of all, the deadbolt has to go all the way out, and then you hear a click. That means it's locked, and you can't jimmy it open. Number one. Number two, the hole it goes into. If it's not drilled deep enough, that deadbolt can't go in far enough to lock, to hear the click, meaning it hasn't extended out far enough to do the click, to lock it in place so you can take a screwdriver and flip it out, flip it open. Okay, so number two, the hole wasn't deep enough. It never fully locked in to in position. Number three, the way the door opened, the back doors, the way like you've used your credit card maybe before if you locked yourself out. These doors had this big of a gap. I kid you not. You could totally see the deadbolt in between the door jamb and the door. That guy was taking a screwdriver and he was just going flip because the hole wasn't deep enough. Those deadbolts never fully went in to click and lock. They just went like this, and then they're not fully in the lock. And he was getting in that way. That's why he unscrewed my light bulb in the middle of the night, I guess. But I would have my chain on usually. There were probably so many times he did that. And he unscrewed the light bulb so he can do that and open my door. But I had my chain on. That night I did not, because I was expecting company. And they had a key. And they would go in the back door. Come in the back door. Anyway, so, yes. And he did that to a lot of them. He stole some jewelry. He did it because the detectives told me this. And they dusted for fingerprints and they dusted my stuff. And I even know what he stole. Stuff out of my purse was strewn all over where he was running. And my wallet was gone, or maybe they threw it out and took the money. And anyway, so you don't trust in your armor and your horsemen in that scenario. But Trump isn't doing it like that. He's more like doing it like, are you kidding me? You're going to mess with us, the superpower of the world? Come on. Who are you kidding? You're kidding yourself. So, all right. Maybe I'll hurry up and move on since I went off into that tangent that I didn't realize I was going to. So, Trump wasn't? Okay, yes. And everybody loved King David. There's nothing wrong with that. Loving your king, that is a blessing from God when he gives you a good king. And if you don't appreciate him, then that's not good, especially when it's obvious what God is doing through Trump for the last days. Okay. And then I just wanted to throw this out there because of my little crybaby video and about the Jews is I used to like watch that news. It was in English, but you know, the Gaza thing, they were always, oh, you got to do this, Israel, and oh, don't hurt that, and oh, Israel, don't do that, and what are you doing, Israel? And I was like, God damn that. They are the original humanitarians. You do not need to counsel them on how to be humane. They're the ones who taught the world. You don't go trying to tell them how to be humane. They're the ones that taught us. And like we're trying to tell, it was harassment. I saw it plain as day. Biden was harassing Bibi. And I know Bibi asked him for this, and this to eradicate it all pronto. They'll release all the hostages and everything will be back to normal and we'll prosecute everything and we'll da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Biden, you fucking demon fucking, they're all Catholic. Even the MSMers. They're all demonically possessed Catholics and I don't care. It's true. Anyway, so I don't remember what was said or what was on the news or whatever, but whatever was said, as soon as it was said, I'm thinking to myself, I felt so bad for Bibi because it was almost like Bibi, I almost felt it or something. I don't know what I heard, but I almost felt that Bibi was thinking to himself, oh, fuck, we're screwed. He doesn't understand. Biden doesn't understand, and I'm never going to be able to get him to do what I need him to do as quickly as I need it done. Bibi knows the Middle East. He's not politically correct, and he's not whatever this garbage bullshit they were peddling and propagating as humanitarians. That was such a big fat sham. It was just demonic. And so Bibi, I got this impression that he's just like, oh God, I'm going to have, this is over. I'm going to have to just try to deal with this somehow. And God help me, because he knew that it was going to be a long, rocky road because Biden wasn't going to get it done. All Biden needed to do was let Bibi have what he wanted, because Bibi knows the mentality of the Middle East. You don't handle the Middle East like you do as a regular Westerner. Or should I say, the way the West used to be. Because now, the West is no longer the West. It's Islamized. And we're no longer the West. We are a communistic country. I'm sorry. We've been a communistic country, but under wraps. But it's like, okay, so anyway, yeah, Trump was just doing that. He was, but Trump kind of fed the Gazans, was kind of playing into that bullshit confusion, because it did kind of hypnotize you in a way. And you're like, yeah, because everybody's berating you. You can't even think for yourself anymore. And so I'm like, wow, I hope Trump doesn't keep this up, because America's going to get judged. Do you guys not know Jonathan Cahn? All the books he writes. It's like a system. You do not touch Israel like that. You don't fuck with her. Okay? Don't play games with her. And they did. And I think that's why we're getting judged. But then, of course, I don't know for a fact, because, Jonathan Cahn, maybe God will give him a reason or give him some knowledge on this, because after what they did, feeding Gazans, making Bibi do it too, making all of us pay for it too, and whoever else in the world was doing it, that was evil. And I don't know if we were like kind of under a little la la land hypnotism spell thing, and I wasn't political on my channel, so I wasn't going to say anything really. I might have said a few things here and there, benign things, but it was nothing about politics. But then finally I'm like, I am sick of this, and I started mouthing off. I'm like, yeah, you're poking God in the eye, number one. Number two, you better watch out, because you just done screwed the pooch, and you've been doing it. And I was getting sick of it. And I was getting sick of how long the hostages had to suffer. This all could have been taken care of in 3 months if Demon Boy Biden would have listened to Bibi. But, I wasn't going to say that stuff on my channel, because I was trying to do other things. But the Jews, are, they don't need to be lectured about Gaza. Isn't talked about anymore, so they're not gonna blame Israel. Anyway, okay. They're all being irrational. And Gaza's not being talked about anymore. And when it was Gaza, it was all about hating Israel. They're doing everything wrong, and we're not helping. and they're doing everything wrong. They're evil. Those poor Gazans, poor Amalek, poor Haman. Let's feed him. And so that has gotten replaced. So nobody's talking about the poor Palestinians right now. It's not in the news. Gaza's not in the news. And so Israel's getting hit now because, they drug us into war when we've proved it over and over. We have known we are the big Satan, according to Iran, Khomeini. We've known this. They want to forget. They want to conveniently forget so that they can blame. So I got a list. Maybe it means something. So in 2016, Trump came and immediately the seething demons surfaced. Okay? They assassinated him all over the MSN, and then 2020 came. Then they started censoring everybody because the doctors were against that shot. Now, Trump was peddling it, but he also was peddling the good stuff, like the Q-Quosamin or whatever this stuff is. And he wasn't really forcing anyone with it like the Biden people were. Here's some donuts, here's some beer. And even though that girl just dropped dead right there on national television, don't worry about it. Just go get yourself a beer and a free shot. Crazy. And they all went effing nuts. That stack of books right beside Biden when he got into office, so proud of himself with 40 pens and 40 stacked high, undo, pop next, undo. He was so proud to hurry up, sit down, have the cameras all on him, showing that big stack of undoing all that Trump did. And he was so ecstatic to do it and proud. And they showed every second of it, probably without even interrupting once. And he signed away all of that, immediately began opening the borders, sex changes for kids, transvestites teaching kids in the libraries, perverted books on if your teacher rapes you, oh, that's fun. In the elementary school libraries, yeah, go watch Jack Hibbs. He'll tell you all about those nasty books with his friends that he has, that they know about the books, that they're printed and put in your kid's library. Like, oh, Susie got molested by her teacher, and it was so cool, and his hot sweaty body on mine, and then he lifted my shirt and stuck his hand down my oh, it's fun, I'm only 10. Yes. Worse books than that are in your library of your kids. And Biden, that's all they wanted to do was pervert America, tear her down and break her, opening the border, giving all the money away to them. And what else did they do that cost a lot of money? The billions and $7 billion in the Afghanistan debacle, and their taxes that their budget that they were wanting that was astronomically millions, billions, trillions budget, pocketing our money, stealing. That's all they were in there for, you guys. That's all they were in there for, is to rob America, because they knew they were going to trash America. And those cities, those big, nice vacation cities in America are still trashed because Trump he's not a miracle worker. But anyway, while the Afghanistan, remember that? It was a debacle in the first place, but instead of doing crunch time about Afghanistan, they were in there wondering about calculating all the money they wanted to get. Everything they did was evil. I can't name it all, but it's out there if you want to look for it. Everything was evil, okay? The world, 2 Timothy 3:13, waxing worse and worse. And the video I shared, some guy, he's talking about some kind of, and it's Second Thessalonians. And I mean, okay, so that was in 16, then 2020, and then Biden nightmare, all the Catholics these are the nominal ones. They're not devout. And when you're not all in with Christ, you're free game, because God doesn't take seconds, and he doesn't appreciate a spouse he's engaged to who really doesn't want to spend any time with him. Sorry. You can't play both sides, I don't know if your church taught you that, but you can't, because there's only one side or the other. And if you're not on the right side, you're free game for the other side, and there's only two sides. So, and if you don't die to yourself, meaning like, oh, well, my flesh wants to do this and I'm not hurting anybody, that's idolatry. You're idolizing yourself and your flesh and what you want, and it's distracting you from idolizing the real God. So it's all of the devil. If you serve your flesh, or if you're serving the world, or if you're serving the devil unwittingly, you can't mess around with this stuff. When you make a vow to God and you are saved and you accept him as your Lord and Savior, and yet you don't want him your Lord, there's consequences. And some of us learn the hard way, because what he began in you, he will complete it. Yeah, once you're his, you're his. But if you stray away, you're going to get punished until you cry uncle one of these days. And if you don't in this lifetime, he will get you. And it's not like the way I sound it. I make it sound bad, but that's just my language. But I'm just telling you, you can't be that way. Okay, so then they did all that destruction, okay? They were trying to break America, break the bank, because they wanted work toward digital currency, because it's prophesied that there's going to be a one world government. It's called a new world order. And the new world is going to have peace. Like everybody's always, the Coca-Cola commercial, oh, peace in the world, or something, whatever the old song is. And all these pagan people, and like Tucker, oh, we just want peace. Yeah, you're going to get peace when King Solomon was king. And that's it. When Jesus comes is when you're going to have peace. Until then, there's a battle to fight, because he gave us armor to wear. And there's going to be a battle, and then there's a race. It's the same thing. Different analogy, different example. And what was I saying? So pagans always want this peace. Can we get along? And no. Because there's going to be, the devil is always trying to muck everything up. Even if you got it all squared away, he's going to put a monkey wrench in it and cause a bunch of chaos to where there will not be peace, because he is not a peaceful demon or devil. Okay, so that's what all this is about. Accepting of the homosexuals, accepting of the transvestites, accepting of whatever breed or animal or human being you want to be. Acceptance. That's love. Then we can all get along, and everybody's happy, and we have peace. But we got to tear the world down first, so that we can have one world currency and share one currency. And we got to tear down all the borders and tear it down so we can rebuild it. Okay, I'm sure you guys have heard that before. So then there's a one world religion, and that'll be the Catholic Church. City on the Seven Hills. She's ancient. Judaism is the most ancient. Then there's Ishmael, then there's Islam, and then there's Catholicism. Well, no, actually, Catholicism was probably the original. No, okay, so it was Judaism, then it was Christianity, the disciples, okay? Then Catholicism moved in, and they decided to name Christians Messianic Jews, the disciples that believed in Jesus, and the priests and the prophets and whoever wanted to believe in Jesus could. And they were Christians, but one of those bad, evil, Messianic Christians, you read about them in Acts. They exist, bad Christians that were of us, but they weren't really of us because they went out from among us, and now they're doing, That was a Catholic person. Then they decided to label it Catholicism, and it's not. Here, baby. It's not Catholicism, it's Christianity. But they had to politicize it and everything, but whatever. Okay, so there's a one world religion. Until the beast gets rid of everybody, the Antichrist gets rid of all of them, because he's not going to compete with anybody. He'll have a holy trinity for a while, but then he just wants it for himself, because it is just Satan. He's always mimicking God. I may make another video. Oh, good. I'm not over an hour. Okay, so maybe you can see if some of this stuff. So, like, first, the Gazans, okay, they were bitching about that, and Israel was to blame. Then, now it's Khomeini. Okay, so how I wrote it out is Gazans, no war, no help for Israel. Khomeini, no war, no help for Israel. Islam is taken over. No war, peace with Islam. No war, peace, love, and acceptance. No help for Israel, which is surrounded by Islam, right? They're irrational. They're totally irrational. They want to keep Israel bound by Islamic enemies, and they want to accept them themselves, so that when there's a new world order, Islam is everywhere, and they can kill the Jews first thing on their list. Yeah. You think they wanted to eradicate Islam over there in the Middle East? No. That's the last thing they want to do. They already have their groups all over the world in Islam, and they're like, oh shit, we just got it all set up worldwide finally, and now you're killing all our Islamics over there in the Middle East, right where we need them. Oh crap. Yeah. That's how I see it. So they want to keep Israel bound by Islamic enemies. They want to destroy the world, opening the borders. Criminals can be legal. Who cares about the victims? They took all the protections of the Jews, gone. Anti-Semitism rose, and they didn't do nothing about it. Who cares? Let them rip. And that's just a couple of things on how they're destroying the world. The cross-dressers and I'm just naming a few things. Sharing bathrooms, women's sports, men's sport, every abortion at 9 months, just as gruesome as they can make it. Not just a legalized abortion and keep it legal, but make it as disgusting as we can, okay? Rip that head on off at 9 months old. There's a girl as well, I'm sure others, had a baby, put it in a bag, put it in the trash. She got caught. Now she's going to prison for life. And you know what's sad is if abortion were legal, well, the abortion was now illegal in her state wherever this happened. And if she was able to go somewhere and murder the baby legally, she wouldn't be in prison right now. You know, I should be serving like consecutive life sentences myself for what I did. Murdering my babies in the womb. But the government made it legal. But anyway, okay, so, I mean, I'm not saying I have pity for her, but I do. Because I've been there. Meaning, I have had an abortion, and I feel bad for her that she's spending life in prison because it's now illegal, which it should have always been. And there's just no headspace for that. I don't know. I don't know how far away. I'm not even going to condone the fact that, oh, too bad she couldn't have gotten an abortion legally somewhere else. Then she wouldn't be sitting in prison for life. Because she's young. She's young. And I'm not saying that that's what I'm saying. But the laws of man, the way they were, that's how, you know, there's two deaths then. God said life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I mean, we don't normally do that anymore, but there sure still are consequences. So, yeah, she took a life, whether in the womb, legally, or not. And let me tell you, if she didn't get life in prison, she probably would have still been in a prison walking around scot-free. Because it could have, I mean, she may not have thought it was affecting her. Maybe she would have been happy about it. Maybe had never had any regrets. But trust me, God will take it out of your ass. It's called consequences. You don't have to be going to prison to get them. You could be suffering up here. Your whole life could be tore up. And you can't ever understand why. Why is my life so shitty? Oh, it's because you committed murder. I'm sure that's why I had a real bad life. You know, I was suffering consequences. You know, and I wasn't in prison. But I was in prison in my life. So, okay. Destroy the world. Destroy the good president. The God-given president. The God-elected president. Feed Israel's enemies. They were feeding the Gazans. They fed Israel's enemies. So they want to destroy the world. Been trying to destroy President Trump since 2016. They want to keep Israel bound by Islamic enemies. We're killing them over there, and they're trying to love on them over here and get them to run the free world. It's such a strange swap. We're spending billions of dollars eradicating them over there. And so, okay, I guess that's all. I'm already going to have 2 videos about this, you know, stuff. And I'll make another video on 2 Thessalonians 2. Okay, God bless you. Bye.